Happiness by Design by Paul Dolan is a thought-provoking book that redefines how we understand and pursue happiness. Unlike traditional self-help books that focus on motivation and willpower, Dolan, a behavioral scientist, brings a fresh perspective by combining psychology and economics. He argues that happiness is not just about feeling good emotionally, but also about finding meaning in life. The book emphasizes that our happiness is shaped by our attention. What we focus on determines how happy we feel. Dolan introduces the idea that happiness is a balance between pleasure and purpose, and that small changes in our daily habits, environment, and decisions can significantly impact our overall well-being. By making thoughtful adjustments in how we design our routines, we can experience greater happiness without relying on sheer willpower. The book is structured into two main sections. First, understanding what happiness truly is and what affects it. And second, practical ways to design a life that maximizes happiness. Dolan's research-backed insights make the book not just inspirational, but also actionable, offering readers a scientific yet relatable approach to improving their lives. Now, let's talk about Audiobook World. This YouTube channel is dedicated to bringing powerful ideas from books to life through engaging summaries and storytelling. The channel is designed for people who love learning, but may not always have the time to read full books. By offering high-quality audiobook summaries, Audiobook World helps listeners grasp key insights from bestsellers across various genres, including self-improvement, psychology, finance, and philosophy. The goal is simple: to make knowledge more accessible and engaging. Each audiobook summary is crafted to retain the essence of the book, while ensuring that the narration is smooth and immersive. It's perfect for anyone looking to expand their knowledge, while commuting, working out, or just relaxing. By delivering concise yet comprehensive summaries, Audiobook World makes it easier for listeners to absorb valuable lessons that can help them in different aspects of life. Whether you're looking for motivation, financial wisdom, or strategies for personal growth, Audiobook World ensures that great ideas are just a play button away. Chapter 1. What is happiness? Paul Dolan begins Happiness by Design with a fundamental question: what is happiness? Unlike traditional views that define happiness as just a feeling of pleasure or the absence of pain, Dolan presents a more nuanced perspective. He argues that happiness is not just about how we feel in a given moment, but also about how meaningful our experiences are over time. He introduces a simple yet powerful equation: happiness is equal to pleasure plus purpose. This means that true happiness is a balance between experiencing joy and finding meaning in life. Some activities bring us pleasure, like eating delicious food or watching a movie, while others give us purpose, like working on a passion project or helping others. The key, according to Dolan, is to design our lives in a way that optimally balances these two elements. Dolan also emphasizes that happiness is deeply influenced by where we place our attention. Our brains are constantly processing information, and what we focus on shapes how we feel. If we give more attention to stressful thoughts or negative experiences, our happiness decreases. On the other hand, if we intentionally focus on positive moments and meaningful activities, we naturally feel happier. The chapter challenges the traditional idea that we can simply think our way to happiness. Instead, Dolan argues that changing our environment and habits is more effective than relying on willpower. Small adjustments, like spending time with positive people, setting up reminders for gratitude, or designing a workspace that boosts productivity, can have a lasting impact on our happiness. In essence, Chapter 1 lays the foundation for the book's core message: happiness is not something we achieve by chasing temporary pleasures or forcing ourselves to be positive. Instead, it's something we design by paying attention to what truly brings us both joy and meaning. Chapter 2. What do we know about happiness? In this chapter, Paul Dolan dives deeper into the science of happiness, exploring what research has revealed about how we experience joy and meaning. He begins by challenging common assumptions. Many people believe that happiness is a fixed state determined by genetics or life circumstances. However, studies show that while genetics play a role, a significant portion of our happiness is shaped by our daily actions and choices. Dolan introduces the idea that happiness is subjective and personal. What makes one person happy might not work for another. He emphasizes that our traditional ways of measuring happiness, such as surveys asking, "How happy are you?" are often flawed. People's responses are influenced by their current mood, recent experiences, or even the way the question is framed. This means that happiness cannot be captured in a single moment. It fluctuates throughout the day and depends on where our attention is focused. One of the most interesting insights from this chapter is the difference between experienced happiness and remembered happiness. Experienced happiness is what we feel in the moment, like enjoying a great meal or laughing with friends. Remembered happiness, on the other hand, is how we recall past experiences. Research shows that our memories are biased. We often remember the peak emotional moments and the way an experience ended, rather than the overall experience itself. This explains why people might say a vacation was amazing, even if there were stressful moments during the trip. Dolan argues that, to truly understand happiness, we need to focus on what people actually do, not just what they say about their happiness. This is where behavioral science comes in. By observing people's actions, we get a clearer picture of what contributes to happiness. For example, studies show that social interactions, physical activity, and acts of kindness consistently increase happiness, while excessive screen time or stressful work environments tend to decrease it. The key takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is not just about how we think or feel, it is about how we live. Dolan encourages us to pay closer attention to the activities and habits that bring us joy and meaning, rather than relying on unreliable memories or societal expectations. By understanding what actually influences our happiness, we can start making small but impactful changes. To design a happier life. Chapter 3. What causes happiness? In this chapter, Paul Dolan explores the key factors that influence happiness, breaking it down into pleasure and purpose. He explains that our overall happiness is shaped by a combination of these two elements, and different people require different balances to feel fulfilled. Some may find happiness in moments of joy and relaxation, while others derive it from meaningful work or personal growth. Dolan emphasizes that happiness is highly individual. What works for one person may not work for another. Many people assume that wealth, success, or status automatically lead to happiness, but research shows that these external achievements often have a diminishing effect. For example, money increases happiness only up to a certain point. Beyond that, the impact is minimal. Similarly, career success may bring short-term excitement but can also lead to stress if it lacks purpose or enjoyment. He introduces the idea that habits and environments play a bigger role in happiness than willpower. People often believe they can think their way to happiness, but in reality, their surroundings and daily routines have a more powerful influence. Small changes, like creating a workspace that reduces distractions or setting aside time for hobbies, can significantly improve happiness without requiring extra effort. One of the most important concepts in this chapter is the power of attention. Dolan explains that happiness is not just about what happens to us, but about what we focus on. Our brains are constantly processing information, and when we consciously direct our attention toward positive experiences, we feel happier. On the other hand, if we dwell on stress, negativity, or things outside our control, our happiness decreases, even if our external circumstances haven't changed. Dolan also discusses the role of social connections. Studies show that strong relationships with family, friends, or even colleagues are one of the biggest contributors to happiness. People who spend time with loved ones and engage in meaningful conversations tend to be happier than those who isolate themselves, even if they have material success. The key takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is not a mystery. It follows predictable patterns based on how we allocate our time and attention. By understanding what truly brings us joy and meaning, and by designing our environments to support those activities, we can create lasting happiness rather than chasing short-lived moments of pleasure. Chapter 4. Why aren't we happier? In this chapter, Paul Dolan explores the reasons why many people struggle to feel truly happy, despite having the resources or opportunities to do so. He argues that happiness is often blocked by distractions, bad habits, and societal expectations that steer our attention away from what truly matters. One of the biggest reasons people aren't as happy as they could be is misplaced attention. Our brains are wired to focus on certain things, often negativity, stress, or comparison, rather than what actually brings us joy and meaning. Social media, for example, constantly bombards us with images of other people's perfect lives, leading to unrealistic comparisons and a sense of inadequacy. Instead of appreciating what we have, we fixate on what we lack. Another major obstacle to happiness is the pursuit of the wrong goals. Many people believe that success, money, or status will make them happy, but Dolan points out that these are often external measures of happiness, not internal ones. Research shows that after a certain point, more money doesn't significantly increase happiness, yet people continue chasing financial success at the cost of their well-being. Similarly, societal pressures push people toward career achievements, expensive lifestyles, or even relationships that may not align with their personal needs. Dolan also highlights habitual behaviors that prevent happiness. Many of our daily routines are designed for convenience or efficiency rather than joy or meaning. For example, people often spend too much time on autopilot, scrolling through their phones, binge-watching TV, or engaging in unfulfilling activities simply because they're easy or familiar. These habits consume attention that could be directed toward more meaningful experiences, like spending quality time with loved ones, pursuing hobbies, or engaging in physical activity, all of which are scientifically proven to increase happiness. Another critical issue is overthinking and regret. People often dwell on past mistakes, future worries, or what-if scenarios, which can prevent them from fully experiencing the present. Dolan argues that happiness is not about perfect decision-making, but about making choices and moving forward. Many people delay happiness by waiting for the perfect moment or obsessing over every decision, when in reality, happiness comes from engaging in life rather than overanalyzing it. The key lesson from this chapter is that happiness doesn't always require major life changes, it's about shifting focus. By managing where we place our attention, breaking unhelpful habits, and letting go of unnecessary pressures, we can remove the barriers that prevent us from feeling truly happy. Chapter 5. Deciding Happiness. In this chapter, Paul Dolan shifts the focus to how we make choices that affect our happiness. He argues that most people assume happiness is something we find or achieve, but in reality, happiness is largely shaped by the decisions we make every day. The challenge is that we often make these decisions based on habit, social influence, or flawed thinking, rather than what actually brings us joy and meaning. Dolan explains that one of the biggest mistakes people make is relying too much on rational thinking when it comes to happiness. Society teaches us to make decisions logically, comparing pros and cons, analyzing every detail, and thinking about long-term benefits. However, studies show that humans are not as rational as we think. Our emotions, biases, and external influences play a huge role in our choices. For example, many people believe that buying expensive things, like a luxury car or a big house, will make them happy. But in reality, the excitement fades quickly, and they return to their previous level of happiness. Another key idea Dolan introduces is the happiness trade-off. Every decision we make comes with an opportunity cost. When we choose one thing, we are giving up something else. The problem is that most people don't consciously consider these trade-offs. For example, working long hours might lead to career success, but it also means spending less time with family, missing out on social activities, or neglecting health. By not actively considering these trade-offs, people often make decisions that don't align with what truly brings them happiness. Dolan also discusses the role of habits in decision-making. Many of our daily choices are automatic. We don't actively decide whether to check our phones, eat unhealthy food, or stay in a stressful job. These decisions feel small, but over time, they shape our overall happiness. He emphasizes that designing better environments can help us make better choices. For example, if you want to be happier, you can set up your surroundings in ways that encourage positive behaviors, like keeping your phone away during family time or setting reminders to take breaks at work. A crucial takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is not just about making the right decisions, it's about making decisions that align with your personal balance of pleasure and purpose, instead of blindly following what society defines as success. Dolan encourages readers to actively reflect on what truly brings them joy and meaning. By becoming more aware of how and why we make choices, we can start designing a life that leads to greater happiness. Chapter 6. Designing a Happier Life. In this chapter, Paul Dolan introduces the idea that happiness isn't just something we feel, it's something we can design. Instead of relying on willpower or motivation, he emphasizes that making small, intentional changes to our environment and habits can significantly improve our overall well-being. Dolan explains that most people think they need big life changes, like a new job, more money, or a different lifestyle, to be happy. But research shows that true happiness often comes from small, consistent adjustments in how we live our daily lives. By designing an environment that naturally encourages happiness, we can make joy and meaning a part of our routine without having to constantly try to be happy. One of the key concepts in this chapter is choice architecture. This means structuring our surroundings in a way that makes good decisions easier and bad decisions harder. For example, if you want to spend less time on social media, simply keeping your phone in another room while working can make a huge difference. If you want to exercise more, setting out your workout clothes the night before can remove unnecessary barriers. Dolan also discusses the power of habits in shaping our happiness. Many people assume they need more motivation to be happy, but in reality, our daily routines have a bigger impact than our intentions. He encourages readers to focus on automatic behaviors, like taking a short walk every day, spending time with loved ones, or practicing gratitude. When these habits are designed into our daily lives, happiness becomes effortless. Another crucial point in this chapter is attention management. Happiness isn't just about what we do, it's about where we focus our attention. Even the best experiences can feel dull if we are distracted, and even ordinary moments can feel special if we are fully present. Dolan suggests small techniques, like putting away distractions during meals or setting specific times for checking emails, to maximize our engagement with meaningful activities. The main takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is not just a goal, it's a design choice. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment to be happy, we can start making small, practical changes right now. By structuring our environment, building positive habits, and managing our attention, we can create a life that naturally leads to more happiness, without needing constant effort. Chapter 7. The Power of Attention. In this chapter, Paul Dolan highlights a simple yet powerful truth: our happiness depends on where we place our attention. He explains that happiness is not just about what happens in our lives, but about what we focus on. Two people can go through the same experience, but their level of happiness will differ based on how they interpret and pay attention to it. Dolan introduces the idea that attention is a limited resource. Every day, we are bombarded with countless thoughts, distractions, and choices. If we spend too much attention on negative experiences, stress, comparisons, regrets, or worries, our happiness decreases, even if our life circumstances remain the same. On the other hand, when we focus on positive moments, meaningful activities, and things that truly matter, we naturally feel happier. A key concept in this chapter is attentional traps. These are the habits and behaviors that steal our attention without adding value to our lives. For example, endlessly scrolling through social media, worrying about things we can't control, or overanalyzing past mistakes can drain our happiness without us even realizing it. Dolan suggests that by recognizing these traps, we can redirect our attention to activities that bring genuine joy and fulfillment. He also discusses the importance of being present in the moment. Many people believe they will be happy once they achieve something, a better job, more money, or a perfect relationship. But Dolan argues that happiness is not about waiting for the future, it's about fully engaging with the present. When we enjoy the small moments in life, like a good conversation, a beautiful sunset, or a great meal, we naturally feel happier. Another powerful technique Dolan introduces is attentional resets. Throughout the day, we can take small pauses to check where our attention is going. Are we stuck in negative thoughts? Are we focusing too much on things that don't matter? By regularly resetting our focus, we can ensure that our attention is directed toward what actually makes us happy. The key takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is not about having a perfect life, it's about paying attention to the right things. By managing our focus, avoiding distractions, and fully engaging in meaningful experiences, we can design a life that feels truly fulfilling no matter our circumstances. Chapter 8. Overcoming Barriers to Happiness. In this chapter, Paul Dolan explores the hidden barriers that prevent us from being as happy as we could be. He explains that while most people think they just need more money, success, or the right circumstances to be happy, the real obstacles are often internal, our habits, thoughts, and beliefs. One of the biggest barriers to happiness is social comparison. We constantly compare ourselves to others, whether it's through social media, workplace competition, or lifestyle expectations. Dolan explains that these comparisons create false benchmarks for happiness. Instead of appreciating what we have, we focus on what others have that we don't. This endless cycle of comparison makes it impossible to feel truly satisfied, no matter how much we achieve. Another common barrier is the arrival fallacy. This is the false belief that happiness will come once we reach a certain goal. Many people think, I'll be happy once I get promoted, or once I buy a house, my life will be perfect. But research shows that happiness from achievements is temporary. After the initial excitement fades, we go back to our usual emotional state and start chasing the next goal. Dolan emphasizes that happiness must come from daily experiences, not just future achievements. Dolan also discusses emotional habits that reduce happiness. Many people spend too much time dwelling on the past, worrying about the future, or focusing on negativity. While it's natural to experience stress or regret, constantly replaying bad experiences or imagining worst-case scenarios can drain happiness. Instead, he suggests practicing attention shifting, actively redirecting focus to positive and meaningful activities when negative thoughts arise. A key idea in this chapter is letting go of unrealistic expectations. Society teaches us that happiness comes from a perfect life, perfect job, perfect relationship, perfect body. But perfection is an illusion. Dolan encourages readers to accept that life will always have ups and downs. True happiness comes not from perfection but from learning to enjoy the good moments and navigate the bad ones without losing perspective. The main takeaway from this chapter is that happiness is often blocked by our own mindset. By stopping unnecessary comparisons, focusing on daily joys instead of distant goals, and managing negative thoughts, we can remove the barriers that hold us back from experiencing true happiness. Happiness isn't something we need to achieve, it's something we need to allow. Chapter 9, Happiness in Action. In this chapter, Paul Dolan shifts from theory to practice, showing how we can actively design a life that brings us more happiness. He emphasizes that happiness isn't just about knowing what makes us happy, it's about taking action and making intentional changes in our daily lives. Dolan begins by addressing a common mistake people make. They assume happiness will happen automatically. Many believe that if they just work hard enough, earn enough money, or find the right relationship, happiness will naturally follow. But research shows that happiness requires conscious effort. If we don't make time for joy, meaning, and connection, other demands like work, stress, and distractions will take over. A key idea in this chapter is happiness by design, which means structuring our environment and habits in ways that naturally lead to more happiness. Instead of relying on motivation, we can set up systems that make it easier to engage in activities that bring us joy. For example, if spending time with loved ones makes you happy, schedule regular meetups instead of waiting for the right time. If exercise improves your mood, create a simple, enjoyable routine rather than forcing yourself into a strict workout plan. If too much screen time makes you unhappy, set limits and replace it with more fulfilling activities, like reading or outdoor time. Dolan also emphasizes the importance of aligning our time with our values. Many people feel unhappy not because they lack success but because they spend too much time on things that don't truly matter to them. He encourages readers to analyze how they currently spend their time and ask, does this bring me pleasure or purpose? If not, it may be time to restructure daily habits to prioritize activities that align with personal happiness. Another crucial strategy in this chapter is small wins for big happiness. Instead of waiting for major life changes, Dolan suggests focusing on small, consistent improvements. Happiness isn't about grand transformations, it's about tiny, repeated actions that build up over time. Something as simple as expressing gratitude daily, reducing unnecessary stressors, or making time for enjoyable hobbies can create a long-term impact on happiness. The main lesson from this chapter is clear: happiness doesn't just happen, it's created. By making small, intentional changes in how we spend our time, structure our environment, and focus our attention, we can actively design a life that brings more joy and fulfillment. Happiness is not a destination, it's a journey we shape through daily actions. Chapter 10: Living a Happier Life. In this final chapter, Paul Dolan brings together all the key lessons from the book and emphasizes that happiness is not a one-time achievement, it's an ongoing process. He reminds us that happiness comes from a balance of pleasure and purpose, and the way to sustain it is by making intentional choices every day. Dolan starts by addressing a common myth, the belief that happiness requires perfect circumstances. Many people wait for the right moment to be happy, thinking, "I'll be happy when I earn more money," or "once I have the ideal relationship, I'll feel fulfilled." But research shows that happiness is not about reaching a final goal, it's about how we live each day. If we don't focus on happiness now, we risk spending our whole lives chasing an illusion. A powerful concept Dolan discusses is happiness maintenance. Just like physical health, happiness requires ongoing care. Even when life is going well, we need to continue making choices that nurture our well-being. This means regularly checking in on our habits, attention, and priorities to ensure we are still designing a life that supports happiness. He also highlights the importance of flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances change. What makes us happy today might not work tomorrow. Dolan encourages readers to stay open to change and adapt their habits, environment, and goals as needed. Instead of clinging to rigid definitions of happiness, we should focus on what feels meaningful and enjoyable in the present moment. One of the most practical takeaways from this chapter is the power of small, consistent actions. Dolan reminds us that happiness isn't about making dramatic changes overnight, it's about tiny, intentional choices that build up over time. Whether it's expressing gratitude, limiting distractions, prioritizing relationships, or simply being more present, these small steps create a long-lasting impact. The key message of this chapter is simple yet powerful. Happiness is something we create, not something we find. By applying the principles of this book, designing better habits, managing attention, balancing pleasure and purpose, and focusing on the present, we can actively shape a life that is fulfilling, joyful, and meaningful. Happiness is not a destination, it's a way of living. As we reach the end of Happiness by Design, one thing becomes clear: happiness is not just something that happens to us, it's something we create. Paul Dolan has shown us that by balancing pleasure and purpose, managing our attention, and making intentional choices, we can design a life that naturally leads to more happiness. Throughout this book, we've explored powerful ideas: how small habits shape our well-being, how social comparisons steal our joy, and how focusing on the right things can transform our happiness. We've learned that waiting for happiness in the future is a mistake. The real key is to design our present in a way that brings joy and meaning every single day. But this journey doesn't end here. The insights from this book are only valuable if we apply them. What changes can you make today to design a happier life? Maybe it's setting boundaries for distractions, spending more time with loved ones, or simply appreciating the small moments. Even tiny shifts in our daily habits can create a long-term impact. At Audiobook World, our mission is to bring you the best ideas from the most powerful books, so that you don't just learn, but grow, evolve, and transform your life. Every book we summarize is chosen to help you gain wisdom, clarity, and practical tools for success and happiness. If you enjoyed this audiobook, make sure to check out more amazing book summaries on Audiobook World. Each book is packed with insights that can unlock new perspectives, improve your mindset, and help you become the best version of yourself. Thank you for being part of this journey. Keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep designing your happiness.